Hello, and welcome to week 4 of our Advent studies from New Life Baptist Church, looking at the character of Christ. We've looked at his eternal character, his truth, and his justice, and this week we think about his love. If you'd like an electronic copy of the notes to go with these videos, then please click the link below. Some passages to read are 1 John 4, 7-21, 1 Corinthians 13, Luke 1, 26-38 and 46-56, Matthew 1, 18-25. It's just 1 week until Christmas Day, so this week we will look at some of the traditional Christmas Bible passages. But as we do so, we'll think about a central aspect of the character of God. God is love. The story of Christmas, right through to Easter, about 33 years later, demonstrates the fact that God is love and shows his love for us in actions. We read in 1 John 4, "This is how God showed his love among us. He sent his one and only Son into the world, that we might live through him." You may well have heard many a sermon on the different Greek words for love, but here in this letter, John chooses to use only one of those words, the word agape. One online description of the meaning of the agape says, it embraces a deep and profound sacrificial love that transcends and persists regardless of circumstances. Verse 7 of 1 John 4 starts in a very striking way in the Greek version. Agapetoi, agapomen. A literal translation might be, those who are loved, let us love. We're not commanded to love one another in order to earn some points and become worthy of God's love. We love one another because we are loved by God, and we're called to live in the light of God's love for us. Let's start in the Christmas story by looking at God's love for Mary. There may well be a few romance films on the TV over Christmas and telling about how Christmas helps people to fall in love, but I'm sure none of them will have the storyline that happened to Mary. God shows his love to Mary by telling her that she's going to have a baby and that her baby will be the Son of the Most High. We might wonder how this is showing love to Mary. After all, it will cause her quite a few problems with her fiancé and her family. Yet Mary responds to the news with, "My heart is overflowing with praise of my Lord. My soul is full of joy in God my Saviour, for he has deigned to notice me, his humble servant. And after this all people, whoever shall be, will call me the happiest of women." That's Luke 1, 46-47 in the Phillips translation. Mary in turn shows her love for Jesus, her child. She loved him and brought him up as any mother would. We're told very little about the childhood of Jesus or his relationship with Mary, but I think you get some idea of the deep love which developed between them when Jesus, hanging from a cross, thinks of his mother and expresses his love for her by asking John, his best friend, to care for her after he is gone. Then there's Joseph, of course. How did God love Joseph in our story? Mary's marriage to Joseph was almost certainly an arranged marriage, and Joseph was probably considerably older than Mary, as was the custom of the time. This does not mean that they did not know each other before the agreement was made, or that there wasn't any love between them. The passage in Matthew makes it clear that Joseph had great concern for Mary. Many a man would have been furious to hear that his fiancée was pregnant and would have wanted the full punishment of the law applied. In those days, this was stoning to death. But Joseph tries to divorce her quietly until an angel appears to him in a dream. Joseph doesn't really get much of a mention in the story of Jesus. Tradition has it that he probably died before Jesus started his ministry. Much has been said about Mary's response to the angel that came to her, and a willingness to accept God's promise to her. And I've heard many compare and contrast it to Zechariah's doubts when he met an angel. But I don't think I've ever heard a sermon which talks about Joseph's response. We simply read that when Joseph woke up, he did what the angel of the Lord had commanded him. But this was no small thing for him, as people would assume the child was his, that he'd been with Mary before they were married. Yet he did as the angel told him. There were no questions here or queries raised, as they were in the stories of others. Mary said, "How can this be?" Zechariah said, "How can I be sure?" Joseph woke up from a dream, believed the dream was from God, accepted that Mary had remained faithful to him, and the child was born from God, and then did as God had told him, and agreed to marry Mary. Wow. How about spending some time reading 1 Corinthians 13, 4-7, and spend some time in prayer, going through with God the characteristics of love that Paul describes, and asking how you can demonstrate these in your life. Think of an individual you find it hard to get on with, and think and pray about how you can love them with that agape love. Try to put yourself in the mind of Mary and ask yourself, how would you react to the situations she faced? Then try to put yourself in the mind of Joseph and ask yourself how you would react in his situation.